Hello again everyone, in this part we are going to talk about borders in HTML and CSS. The CSS border properties allow you to specify the style, width, and color of an element's border and divide it from the background. We need to set style, width, and color of the border to see it inside our file. To do that, let's say we have our h2 tag here with the class name of border, and we're going to select that here, border. And let's say we have our text right here, and we want to specify our border style. To do that, we just type border-style, and for example, let's say we want it to be solid. Okay. Now you'll see we have our border right here, but let's change it to red. We type border color and make it red. And to change the width of it, we're gonna type border dash width, and let's say we want it to be 10 pixel. Here you can see we have this. In CSS we have 8 type of borders that I'm going to show you one by one. Let's make this 5 pixel. Okay, first one is this solid one. It's just straight line. Next one we have our dotted border. It's combination of dots that align in the way that we can see a border around our element. Next one we have our dashed border, and it's just like dots, but instead of dots here we have our dash. After this we have our double border, and this is basically 2 lines next to each other. Next one we have is this. It depends on the border color value. Another one is this, that we can have the opposite of previous one. And we can have inset borders like this, and the opposite of this actually outset, just like this. Now instead of writing 3 lines of code for this, we can use shorthand of border. We just type border right here, and here first we're gonna write what type of border we want. For example, I want it to be solid. Then the thickness I want to be 2 pixel, and the color. For example, here let's make this 00FF76. But let's say you want your border only in the bottom of your element. To do that, you just add dash bottom right here, and now you have only the bottom border. You can do this with left, right, and top 2. And actually we can do this, for example, make all the borders this green type thing, and for example make we don't have semicolon, that's why we're getting error here. We want our for example left border to be in blue. We're gonna fix this. Okay, now see all of them are green and our left one is blue. As you can see here, we have some spaces outside of our border here. This is what we call margins. Margins are basically the space that we want to have between our elements. To make this disappear, first here we're gonna select all of our elements and set the margin to 0. And now you can see we don't have those spaces anymore. And this is good to say that if you write something in the CSS and below that you write another one, the first one is going to be ignored. For example, here if we want to add a margin to our border again, here we just type margin. Well, let me add this semicolon here, margin, for example, we want that to be 20 pixels. Okay, now you can see we have this because as we have typed this margin property here, this will ignore the border, and the border is going to have this margin size instead. As told you in the border, we can have multiple margin for every side that we want. For example, here, let's say we want our left margin only to be 20 pixels. Here you can see we have this only in the left side, or we can have all at once like this. Make this, let's 10. Okay, now let's say we want our right margin to be 5 pixel. Here we have the 5 pixel margin on the right and 10 pixel for the all other sides. Another thing we can have in our margins, we can have this in auto mode that calculates the margin as it should be automatically. But let's say we want our top margin to be 10 pixel. We want our left to be 20, 30 for the bottom, and we have right, for example, 40. Here what we want, and instead of these 4 lines, we can actually use the shorthand of this. We just type margin, and after this, if we write single value, it will go and select all sides and apply to them. For example, if I write 10 pixel as before, you can see now we have 10 pixel all around it. But if I add another element right here, for example 20 pixels, you see that this 20 pixels actually applied to right and left, and 10 pixel is have applied on top and the bottom of the element. And if we add another 2 of them right here, you can see now it goes from top, right, bottom, left values right here. And we can change anything that we want from here in this shorthand mode. And now let's say we don't want our margins here, but we want to change our elements width and height. Okay, to do that we just type width here. For example, we want it to be in 50 pixels. Here we have it. And for the height, we want it maybe 150 pixels. And there you have it, as we have typed here. But here, if we type initial here, it will change the value to its default size. And here, if we do it here, you can see we have that default as the same that we didn't have right at the width and height right here. Another one we can have this inherit mode. And in this, the width will be inherited from its parent value. Here, for example, let's say we have div, which has this h2 inside of it. And here, if I select our div and give it the width of 50%, and let's add border here to see what's going on. Border, I want it solid, 1 pixel, red. Okay, now you'll see our div is 50% of our body, and our border we have with inherit has inherited it, and it is the 50% of a div, which is its parent element. Now let's talk about max width and max height. Let's delete this h1 here and the styles of it. Okay, instead of border, I want to give this background color of black and height of 100 pixels. So This is our div. Now let's change this to 50 pixels. Either let's make this 150. Okay. Now this is 100 pixel in width and 100 pixel in height. And don't matter how we can change the size of our browser, it will stay fixed right here. But if we want to, for example, make this in 50%, you can see now if we resize the window, the div will automatically be resized. But let's say we want to have it all the values below 400 pixels. To do that, we here add the property of max width. And here we're gonna put our maximum value that we want to have it. For example, here if I write 400 pixel, you can see here under 400 pixel, it is dynamic 50%. But as I go above 400 pixel, you see now it has stayed just as it was. And let's make this a little smaller so you can see the difference better. Okay, here you can see now we have our dynamic, and as I go above the thing, it stays on 200 pixels. And we have opposite of this. For example, we want it to be 50% of a page, but we want it to be at least minimum of, for example, 100 pixel. 150 pixels right here. Now, you see, as it is larger than 150, it's going to act on this rule, 50% of the page. But as we shrink it lower than the 150 pixel, you see it stays static and fixed. And as I said, we have both this minimum and maximum to our height property as well. Now let's have border here, 1 pixel solid red. Okay, we want the width for 200 pixels and height to 150 pixels. Okay, now let's add some text here. To do that, first we're going to have our title, and after this we have our paragraph with lorem 45, for example. That's a little much. Lorem 15 should be all right. Yes, this. Okay. Now let's say we want a space on the left side of our paragraph. To do that, we can actually use margins on paragraph, or if we want to add to all of the div, we can use something like padding. Padding is space inside of the border. Here is the layout of it. Here we have our border. Here we got our content, what we have put inside the tags. Here is the margin space, and here we have our padding space. For example, here, if we want to shift this a little to the right, we're just gonna add padding left here. For example, 20 pixels, and as you see, now we have this 20 pixel space on the left of the div, and as well as left, as I told you before, we have our right value, top value, and all other things. And we can make padding all over just like this, and in the shorthand this will actually this 20 pixels is for top and bottom, this is for left and right, and we can have this type of things too to make it even more customizable. Another thing is what we have in this layout. We got this outline outside of the border and before of the margin. For example, here if I going to say our outline, and outline is just like border. We gonna type the width of it. For example, I wanted 4 pixels. The type of it, let's make this dotted, and the color of it, let's make this blue here. Now you'll see we have this right here, and if I add a margin here, margin top of 20 pixels, you'll see now we have this margin right here, our outline here, our red solid border right here, our padding here, and then we got our content of element. And outline is something like second layer border. Please give a like and subscribe to catch next videos.